Oh.
Hi, Matt again from the Festival of Martial Arts, and today I've got with me Glen Lobo. Hi, Glen. How are you, my friend?
Hi, lovely to see you again. Yeah, good, thanks.
Great, nice to see you as well, and thank you for taking the time to speak with us today.
My pleasure.
Obviously, you're on a lovely holiday, and so I appreciate you coming out the sun for us. Um, I tend to start these things the same way, which is I
Sure.
ask for a bit of history and a brief overview of who you are and what you do for those that may not have heard of you.
So my name is Glen Lobo. I teach Silat. There are I've got titles and things that go back a little bit. So I'm chief instructor for Silat Lincha for Europe, and my title in Malaysia was Wakil Mahaguru. I have a royal title there, Paduka, which means Majesty or something. So I teach 3 styles of Silat. My main style is Silat Lincha. So I was the first person to be allowed to teach that, first non-Malay, non-Muslim to learn it. So the first foreigner. It's my main style. I started Silat with Silat Going Haramau in the UK with Guru Jack Othman. I then trained with Richard de Boards as well. Got instructor grades with both of them. In 1987, as part of the GB team, went to Malaysia for the World Championships. When I stayed behind there, I didn't get to train with Jack. He introduced me to some other people, and that started my training in Silat Lincha. So I used to go back for sort of a month every year, sometimes twice a year with competitions. And then I also did some training in a style called Pukulan Madura, which is a Dutch Indonesian style. So I used to go every month for a long weekend to Holland to train with my teacher there, Pa Floor. And I was authorized to incorporate Pukulan, teach Pukulan as part of my system. That's
Okay.
from having started, as most of us did, with judo when I was 9, taekwondo after that. So I found with judo I was small, so people just picked me up and threw me around. With taekwondo I was short, so tall people kicked me in the head and I couldn't reach their heads. Did aikido, some of that wasn't really for me. Did Wing Chun. Found that the Chinese I was training with progressed faster than I was because they were being taught something different to the non-Chinese. Found my way into Silat kind of partly through JKD. I'm also an instructor, I should say, of Lightning Scientific Arnis, certified by Mung Ben Lima, the founder, but under my teacher, Master Sean Porter, who's based Ely, just outside Cambridge. That's it in a nutshell.
All right. Well, that was quite a big nutshell.
Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. There's a lot in there, and I can't say that I totally got every part of it. But suffice to say, you've been doing it for quite some time, and it's a passion,
I
obviously.
think of all the Silat people in the UK or in and around the UK, I've been teaching for the longest.
Right. Okay. Yeah. 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 Again, that's so it's not just the martial arts side of it, though, is it? There's another side to you and what you do. So because there's always a yin and yang, isn't there? If we're going to take it that way. So yeah, the other side of what you do is what?
I'm an osteopath and acupuncturist as well, and a little bit of a healer. But as an osteopath, I kind of put that to one side. So yeah, osteopath and acupuncturist. I think you've seen some of what I do there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's why I brought it up, because they are 2 sides of the same coin, really, aren't they? And that's
Absolutely.
something that's interesting to sort of talk about, because for the there's that harm versus healing kind of thing, but it's understanding the body and how it works is what gets you to each of those eventualities.
Yeah.
And so how does one tie in with the other for you?
When I was at college studying osteopathy, I was told that my sort of control of people's arms was really good. And I was like, well, I'm going from one arm lock into another. So for me, and then as an osteopath, you get to feel end of range of movements quite easily. So then when I'm training with someone, I feel end of range immediately. So I know that if I go further than that, it's going to start doing harm. Or I also feel that sometimes you get to that point, you think, that should go a lot further than that. Just give that to me a second, let me have a feel. But it's that being able to feel where you are on the body, with the body, know the dynamics and the capabilities you have of moving someone else in their positions. and then how far you can take it without doing harm. I remember seeing a martial arts class, and these guys come out going, "Oh yeah, it's a really good session. I can't move my arm," but then you can't defend yourself on the way home. We were taught that the entry is the most important bit, so we go in hard on the entry, but then the locks and things we put on reasonably gently. You put it on once so that people feel it, but after that, we know what it feels like. You don't have to take my joints past their range of movement, because then you end up with injuries and hypermobility problems and ligament problems. So it's teaching that control, or having that, and then teaching that control as well.
Yeah, that also leads to the sort of longevity of training, doesn't it? Being able to continue past, you know, as we age, things don't work quite like they used to. So
I've had teachers in their 70s and 80s who are as good as, you know, anyone half their age. I kind of want to be there as well.
Yeah, don't we all? Crikey, yeah. The idea is that we can continue what we love for as long as we possibly can. So one of the things I find interesting about the kind of things that you do is the weapons and the differences with that, because there's I'm not sure quite what the term is, but there's a lot of different weaponry that you guys use that we wouldn't normally have within the UK.
Sure.
And so how does that sort of translate to people in the UK training in these particular styles and systems?
All of, as far as I understand it, all of the movements in Silat, certainly the way I was taught it, are applicable unarmed, as well as weapons. So it's a weapons art. It's a fighting battle. The current talk is battlefield arts, but they are arts for fighting. So you don't tend to go to war unarmed. So you start off with, you know, big weapons. You lose that, you go to smaller weapons. So Malaysia, the key weapon, as you'll see on all of my badges or whatever, is of a kris. So the kris is kind of the prince of weapons. It's a stabbing weapon primarily. So you'd have a kris in one hand, a knife in the other.
So it's sorry, just quickly, just to interject on that, because a lot of people won't know what one of those are, and I know you quickly flashed up the thing there, but there's styles in a specific way, aren't they, for a specific reason?
The Malaysian kris, I don't have one here because I'm on holiday, but the Malaysian kris is pistol grip. So you hold it here and the blade comes out like that. It's then also positioned so that if you stab someone, it's actually slightly off center. So it's a right-handed weapon that goes inwards towards the body, so inwards towards the heart. It's then got spikes out of it so that whichever way you pull it, you can hook somebody on one side, you can scrape them on the other. They coat it in arsenic. I've given my arsenic away now, but they coat it in arsenic so that if the wound doesn't kill you, the arsenic will. If the arsenic doesn't kill you, the rust on it will, because of the blood poisoning it will get. So something's going to get you. And then you'd have the other famous weapon for Silat is a karambit, which is it's called a tiger claw, tiger kala. And it's a ring with a handle and a hook blade off the bottom of it. They come in different sizes. At the World Championships in '87, I saw one that was about that big. It's kind of just huge. Whatever tiger that came from, I don't want to meet it. But they're usually quite small weapons. I was taught that they were a lady's weapon. So they used to sort of if you take long hair, tie it up in a bun, put the karambit in there, they use it as a hairpiece. So you can put it out, let your hair out, look all sexy, and then cut somebody with a karambit.
That's what I used to do.
I still do. The looking sexy bit's never been my thing. So those are the two kind of main weapons. They also have swords and knives and whatever, and some specialist knives. But those are the two main things.
So were they? So it's interesting because when you look at, say, a lot of the Japanese weapons within martial arts and things, there's that sort of heritage of coming from farming implements, and there's a lot of sort of folk tales about the genesis of these kind of weaponries and things. But the you know, what you've just described there doesn't sound like it has any farming application whatsoever. That sounds like it's designed for nothing else than genuine harm. So so what's the history of the art itself?
So Silat has, I think the term Silat has been called that for maybe 100 or so years. My understanding is that prior to that, it was called Pertikaman, which means to stab. And that comes from the kris principle. So there's lots of history going back of the fights between what used to be what is now Indonesia and what is now Malaysia. So there were, you hear lots of Silat styles, especially the Indonesian styles, talk about the Sriwijaya and the Majapahit empires, who expanded quite wide. As the Majapahit empire was dying, the Malacca Sultanate was building up, so there was a lot more fighting going on. But the Malacca Sultanate, their fighters were better than the Majapahit Empire fighters were, so they kind of superseded it. So they became, Silat is very much, in my terms, a dueling art. They talk about battlefield, and I think for the big swords or whatever, it probably is. But for the mano a mano stuff, it's very much a dueling art. Pukulan, interestingly, is regarded as a Indonesian sort of street fighting art. It's very close, very tight. So with Silat Linsha primarily, I view it as a long range kind of Chris art. So it's a dueling, you've got lots of space. Going Haramau, in my terms, I view it as kind of the way we were taught, it was a street kickboxing art. And then Pukulan is a close fighting, street fighting art.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Because you mentioned a minute ago about you said about the giant with the World Championships. So yeah. They found a way to sportify that. How does that work?
Silat has 4 aspects. So sports, self-defense, certainly the artistic side, and spiritual. So the sport, for me, has gone down a path that I'm not a great fan of. So it looks a little bit like kickboxing. It's full contact to the body, no contact to the face. You're not supposed to attack the limbs. So it's trying to make it safe. But then it's taken out a lot of the things that make Silat what is Silat really good, effective art. There are lots of Silat styles that talk about not being a sport art, because my focus is eye gouge, neck break, groin strike. You can't really do that in sport competition and have people walk away at the end of it. I watched a couple of guys at a competition. They drove on the bus down from Holland to Belgium. One guy put his shin through the knee of the other, and these were guys they sat together on the bus. So I'm not really interested in the sport side of it. We do a little bit, so it's just fitness and the sparring aspect. But there is also an artistic side to it. But I think again that's become very sort of modular. It's like you have to have these parts, a little bit like ice skating or ice dancing. You have to have these parts in it, but they come from the Indonesian heritage, and the style of that for me is different to the Malaysian style.
Okay, it's interesting, yeah, because like I think most arts, once they get to a certain sort of point, they diversify in the elements because they don't all marry together. And as you said, the sporting application, for that to be viable as a sport, it has to modify a lot of what it does, and we've seen that in so many arts across time. So
absolutely,
so it's no real surprise that it's done that. So but that then brings us on to the festival itself, and thank you obviously for coming and taking part. It'd be great to have you along, but I'd be interested to hear a little bit about what it is you're planning on and doing on your sessions. Do you have an idea yet?
I try and mix a little bit from the different things that I do. So elements of Silat Gayung, which has some really nice locking and striking combinations. Linsha is very much a more basic art, so it's very much that thrust and lock and or counters to that thrust. So some of those. Pukulan is a sort of close-in fighting art. So the sort of Pukulan bit is striking. So the idea is to get in, hit, off balance, sweep, stamp, do damage. So I'm going to throw a little bit of that in. I found when I was teaching Pukulan years ago that it was quite hard to teach it because it's a very hard art. It's like the Kyokushinkai of Silat. So I took some boxing drills, created some others, and so I created drills out of the things I do already. So we can then take those and either make them hard or make them soft. That's one of the great things for me about Silat is whatever technique you can do, you can make it look different, feel different by how you apply it. So you can go soft, you can go hard.
Right, yeah.
So teaching some of that as well. So taking any move you like, and we can turn it into sort of the artistic element of it.
Okay, that sounds cool. Because one of the things that I find great about not just yourself but some others as well is the way the movement looks. I mean, I'm always aware that I'm a big hefty lump, and you know, I can if I hit you, you'll know about it, but I don't look graceful when I do it.
Yeah,
You know, watching you move is it's something to see, and it's a, you know, it's a great addition for people to look to add on just a little bit of that kind of
absolutely.
movement and understanding of it. So so that's fantastic. I mean, that'll be a great add-on for people at the festival itself. So in the meantime, if people want to reach out before the festival, how can they find you?
Glen Peter Lobo on Facebook. There's a few other Glen Lobos there, so yeah, look for the face. I've got Lobo Academy, loboacademy.co.uk, British Silat Association. If you look for any of that, you'll find me. I've often said, if you know 2 bits of information about me, you can find me on Google. So my name's Glen with 2 N's, and I live in Luton. You'll find me. You find my osteopathic stuff as well. If you've got any injuries, find me at the festival as well, and I'll do what I can to help you if you need it.
Fantastic.
I don't do first aid. If you want to bleed out somewhere, go and do that. But aches and sprains and whatever, happy to help anyone that needs it. But yeah, Glen Lobo, Silat, Luton, I'm there.
Fantastic. I will put a link in the description as well. So yeah, they'll be able to find you at some point there. So Glen, thank you very much for coming along today. It's been great having a chat, and look forward to seeing you at the festival.
I'll see you in a few months.